Thank you for joining us here on WBCC TV as our video history of the first 100 years of West Bend continues with this, the 7th part in our documentary series. For the next hour or so, we'd like you to join us as we examine the first 100 years of public education here in West Bend. The first school teacher was a woman by the name of Cynthia Sin, who taught here in West Bend in the year 1846, just 1 year after the village of West Bend was founded.
Boys and girls, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the year 1846, the state of Wisconsin provided a budget of $22 for the 22 pupils in West Bend, ranging in age from 4 to 20 years old. The school was used for every public function you can imagine at first. In the year 1866, there were primary schools, district schools, high school, select school, and German schools. At first, Old South School, pictured here, was the only school. Later, it functioned as a primary school, while older pupils attended Old North School. Early school laws did not provide for compulsory attendance, and the legal school term was just 3 months out of the entire year.
There is a song in the land of the lily, each sweetheart has heard with a sigh, over high garden.
In the year 1868, Barton School was built, and its construction was of wood. Henry P. Schmidt was a student at Barton and later became a teacher at Barton School. 3 of his students, Roxana Knopp, Margaret Fellens, and Henrietta Stark, also later became teachers. By the year 1879, 9 years later, school expenses were up to $20 a head, and school was made compulsory by state law for 3 months a year for all between the ages of 7 and 12. Pictured here, the first high school was merely seats added to the upper room of an old school building. Pictured here, Clara Jones, one of the girls that graduated from the high school in the year 1888. Patrick O'Mara, then the mayor of West Bend, gave a speech at the graduation on the topic, the value of an education to the nation. By 1889, the original high school building exceeded its capacity because of non-residents attending West Bend schools. And on July 3rd, 1899, the electors voted a $12,500 appropriation to build the school pictured here on the site now used by the Recreation Department in West Bend. On September 2nd, in 1900, the building was occupied for the first time by 101 high school students. Grades 6, 7, and 8 were also taught in this building, now the West Bend Recreation Center. The year 1901, Emma Leans won the state declamatory contest, and on her return to West Bend, she was met at the depot by a band and the cheering school student body and rode in triumph down Main Street. That was in the year 1901. Years later, in 1917, D.J. Kenny was the high school debate coach, and his third year, West Bend High School went to state and took third place, the smallest school to enter the state competition. Here's a photograph of D.J. Kenny around the time he was the debate coach.
We know you love your land of liberty. We know you love your USA. But if you want the
In the year 1925, the Barton School building was torn down, and a Mr. Cucker kept a piece of the frame building for a souvenir, and in its place a brick school building was constructed. This crayon drawing, presented by Mr. Henry P. Schmidt, was of the original Barton School. It was presented to school and is still there today. After World War I, the need for a new high school building was evident. Far-sighted leadership under such men as John J. Geib, president and manager of the woolen mills, John W. Gale, secretary and manager of Gale Brothers, Fred Stork, the manager of Schmidt and Stork Wagon Company, and Mr. B.C. Ziegler, secretary of the West Bend Company and president of B.C. Ziegler and Company, knew it would be cheaper to buy the land, and that it'd also have room for future expansion. The land was purchased for a purchase price of $20,000. And in 1927, the new high school, costing $220,000, plus an additional $40,000 for equipment, was ready for occupancy. What you're seeing here are photographs of the construction of the new high school, now called Badger Middle School. When the new high school building was completed in West Bend, it also housed 7th and 8th grades, all the way up into the year 1939.
If Washington were living today, with sword in hand, he'd stand up and say, for your country and my country, I'll do it all over again.
The year, of course, when this building was completed was 1927. The school board in West Bend, in the year the new high school building was completed, consisted of 3 men in our community. We'll have their photos on here for you in just a moment. The school district of West Bend was led by Mr. E.J. Pick, by Dr. A.H. Heidner, and an important name in West Bend public education, Mr. D.J. Kenny. 1927 was also an important year for women's athletics. In that year, the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Association came up with a ruling that girls could not compete against teams from other schools. That ruling lasted until very recently in 1971. And because of the ruling, the only sport for girls was basketball, playing one against each other, not against other schools. Also happening in 1927, the West Bend High School Band took first place in the D class of the state tournament. They consisted of Mr. Percy Brown in the top row, Clarence Bludorn, Elmer Harder, Herman Degner, Wilbur Otto, Edward O'Mara, Walter Meyer. In the middle row, Wilmer Kirsch, Wilbur Otto, Emmanuel Zontner, Robert Bryant, Anita Schlamer, Clarence Beck, Robert Rayom, Melvin Stouts. Unseated, Lloyd Schlamer, Lillian Pisto, Albert Otto, Raymond Heil, Willis Beck, and Roland Stouts. The Girls Athletic Association was organized because of the new WIAA ruling in the year 1927 and was the beginning of the girls' interclass basketball tournament. The tournament between them continued approximately 40 years until the Girls Athletic Association was changed to Girls Intramurals. Miss Dorothy Safford, who was the girls' gym instructor, was responsible for the development of this varied and successful program. In 1928, the public speaking team consisted of Leona Pisto, Marguerite Jekyll, Rosemary Walter, and John Pick, who placed third at state, Bethana Buckland, and Tom O'Mara. As the 1920s come to an end, in the year 1929, the Carl Pick Athletic Awards began. The Pick Awards were given to the best athletes in basketball, baseball, football, track, and an award was given to the best all-around athlete. In the year 1933, this gentleman, a man by the name of Nella Passetti, came to West Bend to coach sports. The 1933 West Bend football team, seen here in this movie film from the time, consisted of 33 members, and they wound up the season as co-champions of the Little Ten Conference. Members of the team included E. Pick, E. Groh, S. O'Mara, J. Miriam, H. Fugie, Mr. P. Pick, F. Schultz, W. Potter, E. Wiskerson, E. Kilthau, M. O'Mara, P. Otto, R. Laufer, L. Ottmer, M. Yeek, E. Gonring, R. Pick, P. Brewy, R. Kelly, F. Bingham, W. Weiss, B. Heindel, J. Miller, K. Kilthau, R. O'Mara, D. Pick, W. Hobbig, T. Kimla, J. Pisto, L. Kissinger, J. Kincaid, H. Warnke, and E. Berger. Sorry about the lack of first names, but you know who you are. Shown here, Mr. Jack Runkle was the assistant coach of the 1933 football team. Walter Schulke, pictured here, was the coach, and John Pisto was the captain of the 1933 football squad. The year 1933 also saw the beginning of track competition for West Bend. Leading the pack here, Mr. Jack Pick, a future mayor of the city of West Bend, won the 1/2 mile race in this film footage. That young man, James O'Mara, was also a member of the track team, and Roy Pop Greeno, walking away from the camera there, was the coach. Spectators, very important spectators shown there, were Carl and Andrew Pick. We move ahead one year to the year 1934. In 1934, a parent-teacher association organization was started in West Bend. The first president of the PTA was Mrs. George Kilthau. The secretary was a Mrs. C. Peters. That same year, the football team, shown in this film, had the best record ever. The first 4 of their 7 wins in the year 1934 were shutouts.
5135 Kensington Avenue, and he lives at 5133.
The 1934 track coach in that photo, Coach Runkle. His team won state in the Class B tournament that year. Dan Pick won 2 firsts, and a young Mr. Kissinger took 3rd in the shot put and 2nd in the discus. John Pisto took 3rd in the discus. Steve O'Mara won points in the half mile, and a Mr. Cannonberg won points in the first mile run. The 1934 track team with Coach Nella Pusetti at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison at the state tournament. In 1936, the West Bend High School tennis team competed for the first time and won the conference. Players were in the top row Harvey Schmidt, Joe Honig, Arthur Rutz, and Coach Hildebrand. And in the bottom row, T. Rolfs, Jerome Schickert, James Baumgartner, and D. Rolfs. In 1936, the baseball team were also conference champs. And previously, 1 year before that, the 1935 football team were undisputed champs of the Little Ten Conference. A couple of years later, Carl Pick in 1938 purchased lights for the football field from Borchardt Field in Milwaukee. When they replaced the lights for the AAA American Association, guess what? Milwaukee Brewers team. The light district. The match that was used in burning the final bond was made out of Mr. Cucker's piece of lumber, kept from the original wooden Barton School. Some of the teachers in this film and the students at Barton School. Mr. M.T. Buckley, at that time the Washington County Superintendent of Schools, gave a speech to a crowd of more than 200 people at the burning of the mortgage bond. In 1939, the enrollment at Barton School were 75 students. There were 3 teachers. These 2 women were Ruth O'Mara and Helen Koenigs, and playing ball with the children is another teacher, Mr. Anthony Tony Starl. In 1936, the Board of Education appointed a site committee to make a recommendation for the location of a brand new grade school. The present McLean School location, this house, by the way, was removed for the construction of it. The location was given approval at the annual meeting in 1936. It's referred to as the Ottmer property, and other lots that made up the present site were owned by the Benin, Rolfs, Leans, Albrecht, Pick, and Novak families. Thousands of yards of ground were moved in preparation for the building of the school, and the work started in December of '38. Moving into the new school was completed on Monday, December 4th, 1939. This gentleman, D.E. McLean, was the first high school principal at the West Bend High Schools, and then superintendent of schools from 1905 until September of '42. And of course, McLean Elementary School in West Bend carries his name. At the October 12, 1942 meeting of the Board of Education, The clerk of the Education Board in West Bend, Mr. D.J. Kinney, stated it seemed appropriate and that the universal desire of the people of West Bend was that a fitting memorial be erected or designated in honor of D.E. McLean. The board designated the grade school the McLean Grade School. The south wing of the building was expanded, adding 7 classrooms as the city's population grew. Eventually, all of the students in the 7th and 8th grades in West Bend were housed at McLean School. In 1941, the Carl Pick Awards were changed from trophies to medals to seniors only, so it wouldn't violate WIAA rules. But in 1942, Ray Heijenkamp received first place in the mile at the state meet. The homecoming queen, shown here in 1945, was Vivian Grady, and king was Harvey Kiefer. 2 of the cheerleaders in 1945 were Arlene Klug and Miss Rolfs in this photograph. And in 1945, the Pick Awards were presented to Robert Rolfs and Robert Pick. In 1946, an honor roll was formally dedicated to the West Bend School alumni and those that left classes to enter the armed services in this picture. And of course, World War II had come to West Bend. In the year 1947, the West Bend High School Yearbook did a review of the school's past principals. The very first principal of the West Bend High School was J.A. Buckley, who was also a teacher and was one of 2 teachers at that time, in 1887 and 88, who taught 53 students at one time. He was replaced by D.T. Keeley, who was the second principal for 4 years. L.E. Amadon, shown here, was principal until 1897, when he resigned, and D.T. Keeley took over in his place. From 1902 to 1905, Mr. C.H. Dietz was principal at the West Bend High School. The next principal to follow was D.E. McLean. During McLean's 34 years as principal, many new courses were added to the high school curriculum. And when a school superintendency was established, McLean was appointed. 1 year after his appointment, he passed away. Mr. M.G. Batho had been principal after McLean left to take the superintendent's position. And after McLean passed away, Batho became the superintendent in his place. Replacing Batho was N.E. Colby, who was then appointed to the principal position at the high school. In the year 1949, 2 years later, West Bend High School took second place at state for extemporaneous speaking. The team included Phyllis Indermule, Joel Hetland, Marilyn Miller, and Ann Lawson.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule. American history and practical math. You study them hard and hoping to pass. Working your fingers right down.
1950 and 52, there were additions made to the West Bend High School. The 1950 edition included shop quarters, and the 1952 edition included a second story of classrooms on the building.
You're lucky if you can find a seat. You're fortunate if you have time to eat. Back in the classroom, open your book. See, but the teacher don't know how mean she looks. Soon as 3 o'clock
As we look at this film coverage of the 1950s at West Bend schools, we'd like to tell you a little bit about life in the 50s around the West Bend area. Many major changes occurred in the city of West Bend in the 50s for its, at that time, 7,000 inhabitants. The most noticeable change was a home building boom. Believe it or not, the city council approved parking meters, which of course are now gone again from the city of West Bend. And the city banned the keeping of all fowl in the city. No chickens allowed anymore. One of the big topics was river improvement. A memorial fund existed in honor of dead World War II veterans. and many thought it ought to be used to beautify the river. By this time, the West Bend Company had improved the portion of the river running through its property, and the West Bend Women's Club had beautified 14 different spots in the city, with donations coming from public-spirited citizens. The worrisome topic that continued throughout the decade concerned the relocation of Highway 45. Direct dialing on the telephone became a reality, and the water in West Bend was fluoridated for the first time. The city fathers tried to convince the merchants to pay for garbage and rubbish collection as well at that time. One scandal occurred during the period. District Attorney Dean Bascom withheld the fines for which he was responsible, and he resigned and paid the penalty. Most people were interested in the newest media of the time, the one you're watching right now, television. Politically, West Bend loved Ike, and musically, the young danced to guess what? In 1950, coal in the community was rationed, as much due to the strikes as due to the Korean conflict, and all public buildings, including the schools, were closed briefly during the Korean War. The city did produce its heroes during Korea. The highest-ranking officer was West Bend Brigadier General Andrew P. O'Mara, who earned a Silver Star for gallantry in action in Korea. He became General O'Mara later, and in 1964 commanded the armed forces in Panama. In 65, General O'Mara was promoted to Commander-in-Chief of Troops at NATO and Group Commanding General of NATO's Central Army Group. Captain Walter Ottmer of West Bend received 2 gold stars for meritorious service in the Marines and was promoted to Major. Lieutenant Richard Larson became an Air Force Base squadron leader in Massachusetts, and Major Reuben Syriax received the Bronze Star. Sergeant John Calmer Jr. was awarded the Silver Star for gallantry in Korea, but Korea not only produced its heroes, it also produced its victims. Private Melvin Klein had served 4 years in World War II and was recalled for Korea, only to lose his life in 1950. Private First Class Raymond Backus and Private Richard Shute both lost their lives in Korea as well.
When you make me cry, you say you're gonna leave. You know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day. When I die, well, that'll be the day. That'll be the day. That'll be the day. That'll be the day.
Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, Kelly. I love you, Peggy Sue. Peggy Sue, Peggy Sue. Oh, how my heart yearns for you, oh, Peggy. My Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, Kelly. I love you, Peggy.
The year 1951. West Bend High School won the WIAA State Baseball Championship, as you're about to see here. The team was led by the now honored Coach Carl Coos.
I love you, Peggy Sue, with a love so rare and true. Oh, Peggy, my Peggy Sue.
Well, I love you, gal. I want you, Peggy Sue.
need you, Peggy Sue. I love you, Peggy Sue, with a love so rare and true. Oh, Peggy, my Peggy Sue. Well, I love you, gal, and I want you, Peggy Sue. Well, I love you, gal, and I want you, Peggy Sue. It's so easy to fall in love. It's so easy to fall in love. People tell me love's for fools, so here I go, breaking all of the rules. It seems so easy, seems so easy, seems so easy. Oh, so doggone easy, doggone easy, doggone easy. It seems so easy, seems so easy, seems so easy, seems so easy. Where you're concerned, my heart has learned. It's so easy to fall in love. 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 Look into your heart and see what your love book has set apart for me. It seems so easy, so easy, so easy. Oh, so doggone easy, doggone easy, doggone easy. It seems so easy, so easy, so easy, so easy. Where you're concerned, my heart has learned. It's so easy to fall in love. It's so easy to fall in love. Well, it's so easy, it's so easy, it's so easy. So doggone easy, doggone easy, doggone easy. It seems so easy, seems so easy, seems so easy.
In the 1950s, not all the fires were amusing in West Bend. On August 19th, 1953, a fire broke out at the West Bend High School. The West Bend Fire Department managed to subdue the flames after a long battle. The building damages were estimated at approximately $200,000. Repairs were begun immediately, as the scheduled opening of school was only 2 weeks away. A call was sent out to any students who wished to aid in clearing away the debris. Several dozen responded to prepare for reopening on September 8th. Since many sections and rooms of the building were badly demolished, many classes had to be rescheduled. The school administration itself spent many hours to accomplish the rescheduling of classes. Further expansions in the 1950s in the West Bend School District included Fair Park and Decorah elementary schools, opened to students to relieve the overcrowding conditions at McLean Elementary School. In 1956, Bob Knorr took first place in the discus and second place in the shot put at the state tournament. And Al Peters, seen in the next photo here, came in fourth place in the high jump at the Wisconsin State Meet. Once again, additions were made to the high school in 1957. The additions that year included a double gym, a swimming pool, as well as a brand new cafeteria. Enrollment in 1957 was 1,200 students. In 1959, as you can see here, a swimming team was started at the high school. 2 years earlier, in 1957, Bob Giambetti won the Dylan Goski Award for Outstanding Athlete in the Little Ten Conference. He led in pitching and batting statistics. He placed fourth at the state track meet and placed 11th out of 55 athletes in the AAU decathlon held in California.
See you later, alligator. So
During the 1960s, Silverbrook School opened its doors for the first time for West Bend's middle school students. With the opening of Silverbrook School, McLean Elementary once again became a kindergarten through 6th grade school. This film, courtesy of Pete Nanetti of the West Bend School District. School superintendent at that time, pictured here, Paul M. Loofborough. As we watch Silverbrook School being built from the ground up, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the 1960s here in West Bend. Probably the biggest and most important event in West Bend in the 1960s was the consolidation of the two communities of West Bend and Barton. Several adjustments had to be made in both areas. West Bend ordinances would govern both places, if those in Barton were inconsistent with those of West Bend. With the exceptions of zoning, streets, traffic violations, the current water bill collections, the official map, permits, and licenses until all of those expired. The new municipality would then hold all the assets. Only two real problems arose: the number of aldermen from Barton and the coordination of the two fire departments, both of which were soluble, and the area was redistricted into 7 wards. Then Barton Village President Earl Steiner became the new 7th Ward alderman, and Mrs. Helen Bunke became a supervisor on the county board. And a few streets in the area were renamed. At that time, in 1961 and 62, the Washington County Courthouse was built, and the 1960 census showed a population of the West Bend area of about 9,900 people. Many things happened in the area at that time. New subdivisions were added. Still plagued by the dilemma of the river project, the city of West Bend hired a consultant who recommended that the river in West Bend should be paved over. And once again, of course, West Bend was called on to send men off to war. This time, the war was in Vietnam. Some of those men did not come back. The first being a promising young cornetist, Len Dean, who'd been sent to Vietnam as an advisor. Because of crowded conditions at Silverbrook in the 60s, the district's entire 7th grade class was shifted back to McLean School in 1968. And in that same year, Rosemary Bauer was the first girl to receive a Carl Pick Memorial Athletic Award. In 62, after a tense day of debating at state, West Bend varsity finished with a 7-1 record to take first place.
The West Bend Badgers of 1962 captured first place in the southern half of the Little Ten Conference. They were ranked 8th best team in the state. Ron Kirkland scored 98 points for the season. The cross-country team of 62 placed 4th at state, coached by Bob Cross, Pete Kober, Tom Randall, Dale Schneider, Ron Wagner, Ken Wilkeman, Steve Dickman, and Dick Punzenberger. The state swim team qualifiers for 62 were Tom Randall, Tom Olson, Chet Nielsen, Bob Lass, Jack Stoltz. The relay team took 5th at state. Tom Olson took 2nd in the 100-yard breaststroke. Jack Stoltz swam to a 5th place in the 400-yard freestyle. Jack was hampered by a broken leg and was still on crutches. In 1963, the West Bend swim team and the cross-country team both placed 4th at the state meet. The 1967 baseball team took 2nd place at state. The team consisted of R. Niemer, D. Burkhardt, T. Michaels, M. Mundinger, J. Wilcox, J. Weber, J. Jazak, D. Schneis, Tommy Mesra, V. Parsh, A. Eggert, Coach Nelson, F. Westerman, T. Zell, M. Cruz, S. Walters, and Bob Buttenhagen.
As the era of the 1960s passed, many changes in the 70s took place in West Bend public education. This school, McLean School, became a kindergarten through 4th grade school, and West Bend's high school proved to be simply inadequate for the sheer number of high school students needing to use its facility. The old high school was replaced by West Bend's new twin high schools, opened in 1970. And the old high school then became West Bend's second middle school, Badger Middle School at the time. Also in the 70s, Green Tree School was opened. It became a model school with the music, art, and media center areas. Also in the 70s, Barton School had many new additions, including an art room, a music room, and a presentation center. Mr. Ted Thomas is presently the principal at Barton School.
In 1970, George Spaeth placed second at state for wrestling. Steve Mertens finished the season with a 21-1 record for wrestling that year. The swim team of the 70s sent 7 members to state. Some of the star performers of that team were Steve Justinger, Myron Panko, and Andy Pick.
In 1971, girls were finally allowed again to participate in inter-school competition. There was a span of 44 years when they had not been allowed to participate in the inter-school competition in sports. That same year, the West Bend East girls basketball team, coached by Lynn Laporte, shown here in this photograph, was undefeated.
Ben West took first place at state for baseball. The leading hitters that year were Mike Hughes with a .437 average. Gary Walla and Bill Lechner both batted a .333. The team consisted of Mike Hughes, Ron Simon, Bill Lechner, R. Gum, Mike Matinier, Bill Kramer, Gary Walla, Dave Eggert, and Mike Draxler. D. Schickert, S. Knope, R. Fink, R. Oki, M. Gonreen, Bill Schaefer, R. Hedeberg, Willie Miller, and Coach Cahoon. And East Girls Golf Team placed second at state in 1972 and 73 and took 4th place in 74. The team included Kay Scheineman, Cindy Nanetti, Linda Weyer, Mary Hafman, Jane Kloss, and they were coached by Burkholz. Mary Hafman placed 3rd at state in 1974. West Bend West pitcher Willie Miller, after graduating in 1974, he signed a contract with the Milwaukee Brewers baseball team. East top athlete of 1975 was Mary Hafman. She won more championships than any other golfer in East history. After the 76-77 baseball season, John Jacek signed a contract with the White Sox. East freshman Connie Rudnicki went to state for golf in 76 and 77. Also in 76, Dave Mertens qualified for state for wrestling. He finished the season with a 24-4 record. The 77 East girls swim team placed 9th at state. Individually, Kath Shannon placed 5th, Mary Candle placed 11th. The medley relay team of Lisa Clark, Kath Shannon, Carol Howard, and Connie Spade earned 6th place. The 77 girls track team collected a lot of 5th places at the state meet. The 880 relay team run by Janet Schultz, Jody Meinberg, Katie Worster, and Terry Siski, and the 220 run by Janet, and the 220 low hurdles run by Jody. They all came in 5th. In 1977, the East Forensics were the state champions.
In 1977, Lisa Lonergan went on to nationals for the East Forensic team.
For East girls in 82, Sarah Hafman went to state for golf. She finished in 4th place. She was a 4-year letter winner for golf. Representing East Sons, Penny Gerner placed 2nd at state for the 300-meter hurdles. Jenny Sell placed 7th at state for the shot put. East cross-country runner Greta Belke placed 2nd at state in 82. Greta was a 4-year MVP for East. In 1982, East Jamie Kent was elected American Legion Badger Boys state governor for 1 week. In 1982, West girls softball team advanced to state. First row, Denise Cordy, Laurie Fuller, Julianne, Amy Hartman, Colleen Enright, Jody Schneider. Second row, Donna Matinier, Michelle Black, Janet Munt, Janet Koenig, Ralph Mundinger, Chris Siebert, Joan LaDuda, and Laurie Schultz. West Bend East girls swim team in 83 placed in 8th at state for the 400 free relay. The team was Lisa Hahn, Paula Nanhoff, Diane Mullemans, and Chris Mullemans. In 83, East Kelly Tinfill placed 8th at state for golf.
Hello, this is Lynn Laporte, the head coach of the East volleyball team. And just a little commentary of what you're seeing right here. That was an outstanding kill by Linda Reichel. And in this match, they were far and few between. This Kimberly team and ourselves were favored for this tournament. The tournament championship, supposedly from all the talk around Wisconsin, was between West Bend and Kimberly. West Bend was runner-ups the year before and losing only a few people, and Kimberly had no defeats and in a tough Valley Conference. And in this game, we had both played our pool meets. We had both gone through our pools. We had ended up in first place, only losing an early game to Oak Creek. So we were first place team in B, and Kimberly had a rough time, a little bit of nerves, I believe, and they ended up second place in Pool A. So this was a crossover match to see which one of us was going to play for first place and which team was going to play for third or fourth. At this point, the game is Kimberly 14, West Bend East 10. That meant for 2 service rotations, at least this is how it turned out, we had to hold them off, where all they would have had to done is serve a point, or we make an error on their serve, and they would have won the match. The intensity I cannot explain. I could not talk to my kids. There were 6 games going on. The level of the screaming and hollering and the intensity of the game was felt throughout the crowd. At this point, I would like my setters to be setting back sets because Kimberly had 3 big, just by the way, that was a nice kill by Linda Reichel. And at this point, everyone was playing at the top of their game. If they wouldn't have been, we would have, people made saves. Denise Ducat's hitting the ball right there. Renee Gross setting the ball. Jody Dogg's hitting the ball. If each and every one of them wouldn't have played their part in making saves, this game would have been gone. Each of them made fantastic plays. It wasn't only the hitting, it was the saves, the letting the ball go out of bounds right there that got us our points. We were down 14-11, and at any point could have lost it. And I just was so proud of the girls. I was thinking to myself, I had no voice left. They couldn't have heard me anyhow, where I'd like this ball to be set, just praying that no mistakes would happen. And the kids came through. At the end of this match, they were so fatigued and so stressed that they couldn't even stand up. Their legs were wobbly. They were just shaky. It was like you had run a marathon and just what you had put out everything. Probably the most exciting game that I've ever had. This game turned out that the first game we beat them, there was a close match. I think it was 15 13, and then the last match, by us winning the first game, it just took the wind out of their sails, and we beat them 15-4 in the second match.
West 1984 swim team finished 10th at state. Mike McLean finished second place for both the 50 and 100 freestyle at state. Tyler Sanborn finished 7th. The 200 medley relay team finished 5th. The team consisted of Tyler Sanborn, Ron Heinold, Tom Gibson, and Mike McLean. In 84, West Girls track team was represented by Jane Reese and Michelle Berg at state. Jane placed 6th in the long jump.
Immediately Duquette in the dogs, back to Duquette, and Duquette down into the forecourt. Oak Creek setting up into a zone, I believe, again. Off the dogs, 10-footer, good! Wing right side, 49-48, 134 in the backcourt, driving down, Relowinski coming down to the outside now, lost the ball on the floor, got it back up and off to look to the outside left to Relowinski. Relowinski works it down the left side of the alley at 120, back outside to the charity stripe. Down we go to look on the outside, 49-48, West Bend East. Back to the outside. 5,403 fans here tonight for this ball game as we come down the forecourt. Jody Duck ties it up! Jody tied it up for the jump ball.
Two crucial plays by Jody Dogs here in this final quarter as she hit the baseline jumper just before to give East back the 1-point lead. Now she ties up Lewinsky, and we'll have a jump ball.
The only person not jumping up and down in this field house is Rick Reel. At the moment, there's the tip. Ducat has it. Ducat in the backcourt for West Bend East at 101, 49-48. The Suns, as Ducat comes into the forecourt, it looks like they may try to spread it. Ducat just working it outside. Of course, there'll be no count at this point. Kohler to the outside. Kohler down the left now. Makes the move towards the lane. Has the ball stepped away. Foul, you betcha.
That foul will be on number 24, Jeannie Look. She is out of the ball game.
And Look has just fouled out with 47 seconds. 49-48.
Give these West Bend East girls a lot of credit. They were facing an 11-point deficit coming into this quarter. Even with 6 minutes left, they were still down by 11 or 10 points. They could have folded up shop and called it a season. They did not. They fought right back to get in this ball game. And now with 47 seconds left, they have a 1-point lead. And Kathy Kohler to the line shooting a 1-1.
Even if they lose this ball game, West Bend has really something to be proud of in this club. Kathy Kohler, 1-1 from the free throw line. The first one is no good. Well, Kohler got up in there to pull it down and tie it up. It looks like there's Cornell. Now they're going to try to put LaCroix in there. That was Kathy Cornell who had that ball. Ball tipped to the outside. Ducat has it. 44 seconds. Ducat dribbling outside. Off it goes to Kohler. Corner back to Ducat. 35 seconds. Ducat working it around to the outside. 31 seconds. Ducat still working it around to Dogs. Outside left. Now it goes to the right side. Ducat's up between the circles. 25 seconds. Ducat's driving around. Ducat's coming around. Still being pressured. Ducat gets it off the Dogs. Dogs to the outside. 16 seconds. Down inside and a foul.
And I believe they're going to give Jody Dogs 2 shots. They're going to call that an intentional foul. Let's wait and see, but I believe they got to give her 2 shots. Yes, they are going to give her 2 shots.
You betcha. So, Jody Dogs to the free throw line. 15 seconds. 49-48. We need this so bad. Good! It is 50-48.
Now, if Dogs makes this free throw, I'm sure Coach Rick Reel is going to send his sons back in a zone offense to make Oak Creek shoot the ball from outside.
Here comes the second free throw attempt. Up. Good! 51-48. He drops back now. 14 seconds, 13 seconds. Relowinski coming down. Outside. Flips it up. Outside. Ignatiak up and in on the rebound. Off the glass. It is 51-50. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Oh, game! He's just done it!
And now footage of the West Bend East Suns state championship game.
State championship game, the Brookfield East Spartans against the West Bend East Suns in the championship game for this 9th annual WIAA Girls State Basketball Tournament. Right now, standing by, set for the lineups for both teams, is Fieldhouse announcer Jack Rain.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the 9th annual WIAA Girls State High School Basketball Tournament. Here are the participants in tonight's Class A Championship Final game. First for the Sons of West Bend East. Number 33, Ann Altschafel. Number 15, Paulette Gerner. Number 35, Renee Gross. Number 23, Pam Hopp. Number 45, Carla Kepler. Number 25, Beth Nija. Number 21, Ann Schneider. Starting for West Bend East tonight, at the forward, number 31, Kathy Kohler. At forward, number 41, Laurie Fellner. At center, number 43, Linda Reichel. At guard, number 11, Denise Ducat. At guard, number 13, Jody Dogg. West Bend East coach, Rick Reel.
They're playing very aggressively right now, and they're bothering the Suns.
And Linda Reichel has just fouled out. Committed her 5th personal. And Reichel is done. And what a state tournament it's been for Linda Reichel. 25 points. That goes along with her 39 from before, 64 points, as we told you, a new Class A tournament record. But she fouls out with 3:37 to go. Don't leave this game. It is not over yet. Two big misses with 37 seconds to go. And West Bend has the ball and still a 5-point lead. Stolen by Missy Byrne. She drives and scores! Fouled by Jody Dogg. It could be a 2-point game.
Missy coming in, taking the ball to the basket. Got the blocking foul. You can see it there from that angle a little bit better. West Bend East is a little tired. They're not doing a real good job of coming to meet the ball right now.
Well, the press that Brookfield is applying is pretty effective. Plus, it's a all-out approach for Brookfield. Possibility to cut it to 2. Yes. 60-58 with 32 seconds remaining. No one there to inbound it for the Suns. Now the count is started. Pass over the back, a foul by Missy Byrne. We'll see it again on the replay, but just 1 second ticked off. Let's see, was it a foul?
She came over the side a little bit, but I think you can see on that picture how West Bend is not really taking that step toward the ball on those passes.
So a critical situation for Kathy Kohler, who's 2 for 3 from the free throw line so far. She's the 5'7" junior role player for West Bend East. Oh, what a big free throw.
Nothing but the bottom of the net on that one.
She's almost overwhelmed by the moment. She turned around and kind of a wan smile saying, boy, I made it. I can't believe it. Second one is off. A 3-point lead for West Bend. 28 seconds to go. You see the time on the clock. Shot from the outside is too strong. Rebound. Nothing more they can do. Now West Bend is up by 1. What a game. 15 seconds to go. Trying to get the ball in the forecourt. They have to foul. Down court, the Dogs all the way. Yes! Jody Dogg. 5 for 5 from the field. Coming back, Missy Byrne. Yes! Game is over. 1-point game. West Bend East wins 63-62. The last shot will count. The final score, I believe, will be 63-62. They're checking with the officials to see, and it is official that last basket did count by Missy Burns, so it is a one-point game. What an exciting finish. That basket by Jody Doggs was the difference as West Bend East surprises this Class A field with a 63-62 win. And there you see the champions. What a game.
Captain Jody Doggs, the Class A champion, West Bend East. Please proceed to center court and receive the individual team medals. Coach Rick Reel of Class A championship team, West Bend East. Please proceed to center court and receive the championship trophy. Let's give both teams a big Wisconsin welcome. Thank you one and all for sharing in this ceremony and participating in this 9th annual WIAA Girls State Basketball Tournament. We hope to see you all again next year.
Well, West Bend East, in the first team trip to a state tournament ever for a team from that school, has gone away with the championship trophy. And this truly is quite a story for a school system that divided itself 14 years ago at the senior high level, and the teams divided itself to allow more participation, and since then no team had made a state championship entry until now, and West Bend East, coming on strong at the end of the season, wins the WIAA Girls State Basketball Championship. And Rick Reel, in his 6th year as head coach, ironic as it is, Katie, gets his 100th win with this victory.
Well, I'm sure you'll remember this one. It was a great victory by West Bend, and as we talked before, they were on a roll coming into the tournament. They were playing real well, real up-tempo, and that's what happens a lot of times in tournaments. You get things going, and last night they had a girl shoot 28% from the free throw line, make 2 crucial free throws, and then tonight they did a good job. So,
well, Linda Reichel, as we told you, set a Class A record, 64 points in the tournament.
We have the WIAA Summer State Championship Baseball game from Regner Field in West Bend. The game will feature the Gail Ettrick Trempealeau Redmen versus West Bend West Spartans.
The 1984 West Bend West Spartans state baseball champions were coached by Mr. Chuck Schrader.
Leading off for the Spartans will be Rob Lloyd. He'll be playing left field. Hitting second will be Rick Burry and playing second base. Hitting third, Brian Goring. He'll be at shortstop. The first baseman will hit fourth. He is Brad Burns. Hitting fifth will be Scott Sabin at catcher. Joe Stoffel, the DH, will bat sixth. Chris Wetzel will play center field and bat seventh. Chip Failing, who will be pitching tonight, he'll be batting eighth. And Mark Kaler will be batting ninth and playing third base.
Swinging a fly ball in the left field. Left fielder gets over, gets under it, makes a catch. Here comes the runner. He's going to score easily. And West Bend West gets on the board here in the first inning. They lead 1-0.
Okay.
That ball line into right field for a base hit. Could score a run. Here comes Sabin around third base. He'll score easily. So right fielder doesn't know what to do with the ball. He holds on to it out there. And another runner is in for West Bend West. Rob Lloyd led off the game with a base hit, stole second and stole third, and then scored on a sacrifice fly for West Bend's first run. 2-0 to score right now. Ball lined up the middle, past the shortstop into center field. It's going to score at least one run, possibly two. Here comes the runner around third. He scores easily, and 2 more runs for West Bend West. So now Joe Stoffel with a chance to drive in a couple of runs with runners at second and third base. Ball line into right field, base hit. Here comes the runner around second base, and 2 runs will score. And it's now 6-0 West Bend West on top.
Stoffel lining that ball just like the prior 3 hitters did, right up the middle. The breaking ball coming right over the plate.
Ball grounded in the hole. It's short. The shortstop was playing in. Ball gets into left field, and 2 runs will score. Here comes the throw to the plate. Not in time, and the runners, both runs are in. And Brad Burns goes down to second base. Still only one out here in the top of the fourth inning. Stoffel, the sixth batter to bat here in the inning. And he lines a shot into right center field. Gets by the right fielder. It's going to go all the way to the wall. One run is scored. Here comes Saban. Stoffel trots into second base with a double. Pardon me, Brad Burns scored on that double. Saban goes to third base. Ground ball hit out in front of the plate. Past the pitcher. A tough play for the third baseman. Dick throws over to first. Not in time. Ball rolls into foul territory past first base. And as you can see, the runner is in at second base easily. Brian Gary. Pitch is high for a ball. We're going to see this place erupt if they win this, get this last out here.
Hello, Edsma, we may well say just a word about him. He pitched the victory game over Greenfield earlier today, and there's a nice line.
Lines a shot to left fielder. Left fielder's got it for the final out of the ball game. That's it.
The score is West Bend West 10 and Galen Temple.
That'll do it.
West Bend West is the state champion of 1984.
Just an outstanding game here by the West Bend team. Put it together when they had to, a record of now 19-11. But they won when it mattered. You see a very, very, very elated West Bend team.
I tell you, Larry, there's nothing quite as exciting as winning the baseball championship, no matter what level it is. And these guys are the champions of the state this summer in the WIAA.
I'll tell you, the credit has to go to Chuck Failing, man who wasn't considered by much to be an ace in the hole, as manager Lund talked about before the game, but he sure proved to be that today, allowing just 5 hits, striking out 3, only 2 bases on balls, coming both back in the 6th inning. But he brought his team together and made the pitches when he had to make them.
Okay, so final score. You see the jubilation on the faces of the players for West Bend West. The crowd is on their feet. They're cheering in the background. Final score, 10-1, West Bend West over Chempalo.
1984 was a tremendous year for West Bend High School achievements in athletics, and 1985 has proved to be no different. West Bend West girls 200 medley relay team, pictured here, captured first place at the WIAA state meet in November with a 1 minute and 51.02 seconds clock speed, qualifying them for the public high school's All-American team. Coach Dave Blumier said they were 12th among the 30 high school medley relay teams selected as All-Americans. West Bend West's All-American relay team consisted of Julie Riffle, Jackie Becker, Deb Gregori, and Jennifer Wenzel, all of whom will be returning to West High School in 1986. The 1984-85 West Bend East High School boys swim team also went on to state competition and placed 7th as a team in Wisconsin State High School competition.
In the 400 freestyle relay, they took 3rd place. The team consisted of Pete Meinberg, Kevin Tinhagen, Troy Deep, Bob Kohler. The 50 freestyle, Pete Meinberg placed 7th. In the 100 freestyle, he also placed 5th. The 100 backstroke was Tim Mollemans. He placed 9th.
In 1985, the East High School gymnastics team placed 9th at the state. It was the first ever state meet as a full team, and the Suns scored their highest total of the year in a school record of 105.73. Tammy Lowe and Kelly Wickman did very well on their bar routines. Ellen Mary Hanslick scored an 8.9 at the sectionals, and on floor exercises, Chris Ehrlich did a superb job. Joanna Freilich did well with more difficult tumbling, and balance beam went great with a school record and a fine individual performances by Michelle Pickering and a 7.9 by Kelly Wickman. Bodil Kiva scored an 8.8, which was a school record, and put her in 10th place. The meet was a tremendous experience for the East girls. To be one of the top teams out of the 140 state teams is quite an honor, said Coach Randy Ray. All of the competition in the West Bend School District wasn't purely athletic in nature. Green Tree School captured first place at the World Tournament in the Olympics of the Mind. Green Tree students on the Olympics of the Mind team included Jenny Coulter, Amy Schaefer, Dan Thalen, Matt Sullivan, Ann Gruber, Sarah Nixon, and Mitch Marsh. McLean School also had a team at the World Finals of the Olympics of the Mind that was held at Akron, Ohio. And also in 1985, Badger Middle School's forensics team captured first place in the state of Wisconsin. In 1985, numerous members, including this man pictured right here, Mr. Pete Nanetti, had placed in their careers 25 years of service with the West Bend School District. Mr. Wes Kukuk, presently retired to the school district. As we look at some of the photos, this is Frank Dare. I'd like to mention the names of the people who've spent 25 years educating our youth in the West Bend area. They included Margaret Howig, Gladys Meal, Bernice Tucker, Marita Yar, Inez Mule, this man, Jack Weir, Mary Wachs, Glenn Markroff, Dorothea Hegbar, Mr. Ed Klinger, pictured here, Jerry Engstad, Mr. Nathan Runke, Gordon Moen, Carl Hornshoe, Marion Norstrat, pictured here, Dorothy Williams, Mr. Robert Cross, Jim Wallisberg, Fred LaLike, pictured here again, Dave Schleif, Robert Freeman, Winifred Gerner, Ace Allen, Geraldine Burkholz, and pictured here, Mr. James Cannell, Les Howard, Virginia Cole, Bob Newman, Albert Jacobson, Hazel O'Mara, Don Gladowski, pictured here, Gloria Macri, Jim Smith, pictured here, Mr. Ken Schumacher, John Kane, and Orvin Summers.
We are here to introduce you to the high school administration year 1985. To my left.
I'm Bob Rammer, high school principal at East.
Reg Youngworth, assistant principal at East.
Mike Shoemaker, assistant principal at West.
Memory Vanderheiden, principal at West.
Earl Lebachen, executive principal.
Hi, I'm Nellie Nelson, athletic director at the West Bend Schools. I've been with the West Bend Schools since 1963 and been athletic director the last 20 years. What I'd like to do today is to familiarize you just a little bit with the outdoor facilities that have been planned at the West Bend High School complex. I would like to, before today, to give you an idea of what we are hoping to accomplish in the next few years. It is a phased plan and hopefully one that will meet the needs of the student athletes in the West Bend schools. So if I could direct your attention to the plan, I can probably update you a little bit as to what we plan to do at 1305 East Decorah Road. To orientate you, this area here is Decorah Road. On the east side of the property is Highway G. The brown diagram in here indicates East and West High School. The existing tennis courts are in the pink and green diagram. Now, we are planning to phase this particular program in a minimum of 3 phases. It hasn't been completely finalized at this point, but to give you what we have. Beginning in the spring of 1985, we will be working on phase 1, which will include this area that I am encompassing with the pointer. The purpose of phase 1 will be to provide some safe physical education and practice fields for athletics. Involved in phase 1 will be the movement of dirt, the leveling and the seeding, the watering, and getting ready, hopefully ready for the fall of 1986. This particular area will include some practice football and soccer fields. It'll mainly be level areas, It will include additional play fields and soccer and football fields in this area for practice. It will include a practice softball diamond located in this area and a baseball diamond for practice that will be located in this area. You won't see a great deal of change in the area other than hopefully some level and safe play fields. We will have a backstop at this area and a backstop in that particular area there for baseball. This would be phase 1. Moving into phase 2, we will, at the plans right now are indefinite, but phase 2 would include the leveling and the movement of dirt in this area to accommodate the facilities that will be placed here. As you can see, your attention is immediately directed to the center of the diagram where we have the football, soccer, track complex. The grading and the exactly what will be included in phase 2, we're not sure at this time, but we will complete the grading and hopefully be including the track, the leveling of the field, including some watering and so on. At this point, we're not sure. We probably will go into phase 3 with lighting and bleachers, that type of thing in the phase 3. In phase 2, we will also have a exhibition baseball field, which will be ready to play games for our varsity and JV. We will have 3 additional softball fields, 2 more practice fields, and 1 which will be a game field where we would be able to play competition games. We will have, as is superimposed on here, you can see where we have additional practice fields for football, possibly soccer in the future, where we will overlap, to give you an idea what we are doing in this area. Now, in the phase 3, which would be the final phase, hopefully completed in around 5 years, would include the extras that go with the football of the stands and the lights, and possibly a building here for concessions, a support facility that would be used for concessions, and team dressing, bathrooms, that type of thing in here. So when we're finished, what we're hoping to accomplish is to have some safe athletic fields for the boys and girls at West Bend schools. That would include practice for soccer and football and baseball. We would have facilities that would include the football for games, soccer games, and track, and the adjacent areas would be used like for the shot put, the long jump, the triple jump, and the discus in this area. The baseball fields, as I mentioned, and the softball fields, as I mentioned, which would complete the plan and provide the necessary athletic and physical education facilities for the West Bend School District. Very excited about the plan, and we hope that we can continue with this and have the support of the community in this particular project.
This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to this meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of the meeting was posted in each school building. At the district office, a copy sent to the West Bend News, the WBKB radio station, and also to 7 other news media sources who have requested notice of our meetings.
The 1985-86 West Bend School Board. Of course, the school district's leader at this point in our time is Dr. Dwayne Ehrlich, school superintendent. President of the 85-86 School Board is Mr. Michael Lewis. The vice president of this year's school board is Mrs. Kathleen Limbaugh. The secretary of the school board, Mrs. Virginia O'Meara. The treasurer of the 85-86 school board is Mr. Patrick Bork. Other members of this year's school board include Mr. Terry Supernant, Mrs. Judy Lewis, and Mr. Stephen Bauer. The past 100 years of public education in West Bend has seen growth and change coming regularly. From one-room schoolhouses in the early and late 1800s in the West Bend area, up to today, where you might walk into an elementary school and find a computer laboratory. West Bend public education continues to grow in our community. Today, the public schools, just the high schools alone, serve a population of students in excess of 2,000 people. But public education isn't the whole story of education in West Bend for the last 100 years. There's a little bit more that we'd like to share with you about the history of education in our community as this Centennial Program special continues.
The history of our Catholic education is a rather interesting one. It probably goes way, way back in the history of Europe as well as our own country. The Church has been convinced for many centuries of the necessity of integrating education and Catholic teachings or Catholic faith. So we go back to Europe already. We have the great universities that were begun many, many centuries ago with the idea of underlining the importance of Catholic doctrine as a part of one's educational experience. In our own country, there's a little different history. It begins in the last century when hundreds of thousands of Catholic immigrants were pouring into this country. As hard as it is for us to understand this, in our own culture today, at one time, every school in this country was a religious school, and that included the public school system. The problem for the Catholic immigrants was the fact that the religion being taught in these schools was not Catholic. It was very heavily Protestant. And consequently, in reaction to that, the bishops desired to have their youth trained in a facility whereby Catholic instructions could be given. And so we trace our origin to that. Toward the latter part of the last century, Catholic schools had gotten off the ground very heavily in this country. But the point of the matter is these schools have served an unbroken tradition for well over 120 years. And they still are the largest parochial school system in the United States today, serving many millions of children throughout our country.
At this point in our program, we've been concentrating up until now on public school education in the West Bend area over the last 100 years. That gentleman, Father Casper Rule, was the founder of parochial education for Catholics in the West Bend area. He founded a Roman Catholic academy pictured here in Barton in the year 1858. Father Rule was also interested in preparing teachers. Tuition at one time in private schools in West Bend was 12 cents a month. Select schools in the West Bend area were also common, especially for girls. Miss Frances Whiteman founded the first one in the year 1859. Mrs. Whiteman's students met in the old German Methodist Church. In 1860, Miss Whiteman moved to Boston, and Miss Pluma Holcomb taught the second select school in the district using the public schoolhouse when it was not in session. In the year 1875, Frederick Regenfuss had his own German-English select school, the first academy here in the city of West Bend. One of the most interesting old schools in the community, and possibly one of the best, was that of Auguste Babille, who came to West Bend in the 1850s from France. He was an excellent mathematics teacher. The best families in town sent their children to the Babille Academy. The first Catholic school to be started in the West Bend area was opened in Barton in the year 1850 under the direction of Father Casper Rule, who traveled on foot to several villages to serve the people. The Sisters of St. Agnes, an order of sisters founded by Father Rule, taught in the school until the year 1868. The old portion pictured here of the current school building was built in 1876. St. Mary's historical significance is that it's the oldest continuously operated Catholic school, not only in the Milwaukee Archdiocese, but probably in Wisconsin and the United States as well. The enrollment of 110 students was under the direction of Reverend Michael Ruckengruber. And in the same year, 1881, the School Sisters of Notre Dame came to teach at St. Mary's. During Father Francis Ruman's services as pastor from 1911 to 1937, the school changed from a one-room school to 3 rooms by 1913, and those rooms are still in use today. This new section pictured here was added with 6 new classrooms in 1958 on the west side of the building. The 81-82 school year marked the successful establishment of the first kindergarten program, and total enrollment presently is 190 students, with 3 School Sisters of Notre Dame, 8 lay teachers, and the present principal, Mr. Sam Kloss. Holy Angels had its own parish school sometime in the mid-1800s, though the location of this very first school at Holy Angels is not known. In the early 1860s, some of the children from Holy Angels walked to Barton, where the newly established Sisters of St. Agnes conducted their school. After the new Holy Angels Church was completed in 1867, in this photograph, on the southwest corner of 7th and Elm, the old church pictured here at 7th and Hickory was used as the schoolhouse for Holy Angels. Mr. John Lindell was schoolmaster until 1878, when bad health forced him to leave for a warmer climate. At that time, there were 85 students enrolled at Holy Angels School. In the year 1880, parishioners were asked to furnish brick, stone, and lime for the construction of a new school on the old church site. And by 1918, the school was overcrowded with an enrollment of 226 pupils, but a financial recession during that time postponed any building plans. The school board then offered this building, the old public high school, to Holy Angels Parish, the building which now houses the city's recreation department. Holy Angels occupied this building until 1939. Just before they moved to this building in 1938, the city proposed offering it for sale to Holy Angels. It's located just north of the present church, and an addition to this building was completed in 1949. This 75-year-old public school building had finally served its purposes by the year 1962. It was torn down in 63 and 64. And in September 22nd of 1963, the groundbreaking of a new building, pictured here was Monsignor Rainer Hausmann, took place. In the fall of 1963, nearly 700 enrolled students walked into brand new classrooms at what is today's Holy Angels private school. In the year 1967, gym classes were first held under a qualified director, Mr. Daniel Salzwedel. A kindergarten was reopened in the 77 and 78 school year, the first kindergarten offered at Holy Angels since the year 1903. Holy Angels was the first Catholic school in West Bend to start a kindergarten program. Following the tradition of Immaculate Conception, or what we call St. Mary's in Barton, and Holy Angels, St. Francis Cabrini was established in the year 1955, and by 1957, Cabrini also had its own Catholic school. Along with the Catholics, of course, in West Bend, the Lutheran tradition is very strong, and St. John's started its first school in the year 1860, when the pastor at that time taught both Sunday school and day school, all in German, of course. As early as 1872, the congregation had a Christian day school in one room in its church at 6th and Walnut. Over the first 30 years, they had 16 different teachers, some of them students from Northwestern College at Watertown. The second school, a 2-story building, was built in the year 1891 and cost a whopping $1,500. By that time, 1891, enrollment had grown to require 2 regular teachers. Just 10 years later, in 1901, enrollment had grown to 126 pupils, and as late as 1916, there were as many as 83 pupils per teacher. At that time, a new school was built at 6th and Walnut in 1918. It was inadequate in the 50s, and this photo is from just before that school building was torn down. Now the congregation has their fourth school, the present school, next to the church, built in 1958 at a cost of $319,000. Presently, the principal at St. John's Elementary School in West Bend is this man, Mr. Kenneth Gunlock.
As our history video continues, we are now going to take a look at the history of local churches. Many of the histories of the churches had to be edited down to be able to include them on this program. At first, there were no churches per se in the sense of a church building. After a congregation had outgrown meeting in a settler's home, it either built crude log buildings, often a mere shack, or it met in the first public school. Inasmuch as local Protestants were more prosperous at first than the Roman Catholics, the Protestants got busy and constructed a building which would attract new members. All churches had to survive the temperance question, as the natives battled the incoming Germans over the drinking issue. Then, too, there was the division issue of slavery, with the Christian concept of love and brotherhood drowned out in prejudice. As early as 1848, a church was listed in the Eastern Wisconsin Methodist Conference minutes as a mission church, so it may have been West Bend's first actual church. The conference minutes for 1853 mentioned a church building in West Bend, but its exact location is unknown. The first couple to be married in that church was John Rusco and Elizabeth Perry, while Laura Lewis received the first recorded baptism. By 1872, the Methodist Church claimed 54 members. The old church was replaced by this building in 1872, after the congregation had met in the village school on alternate Sundays with the St. John's Lutheran congregation. In 1872, the congregation built their own church. By 1884, another lot was purchased for a parsonage, which was erected in 1892. A new and larger church was planned in 1929, but the Depression struck, so it was not until 1934 that an additional lot was purchased, and another 8 years before they raised the old church and laid the cornerstone in May 1942 for their new building. The church was again enlarged in 1968. Holy Angels Church was begun by Father Casper Ruhl, who was encouraged by Bishop Henney of Milwaukee to come to the area. When Father Ruhl first began the parish, it was extremely large, covering the territory from West Bend to Green Bay. 3 years later, there were 12 Roman Catholic families in West Bend out of a total of 30, so West Bend qualified as a mission station. In 1851, the local Catholics bought a lot from Moses Weiler for $15 for a church at the corner of Hickory and 7th Avenue. And by 1853, there was a 23 by 34 beamed frame building that cost $1,000. It was named Mary, Mother of Sorrows. When Father Ruhl began to devote all his time to Barton, which had also taken the name of Mary, the West Bend Mission Station changed its name to Holy Angels. Barton pastors served West Bend for 34 years before it became an independent parish. In 1862, the parish imported a 600-pound bell, which was rung each day at 6 a.m., 12 noon, at 6 p.m. The first church quickly became too small, and by 1866, a second building was started at 7th and Elm Street. The old building was turned into the parish school, but it soon became inadequate for this purpose also. A new school and convent were built at 7th and Hickory for a cost of $700,000. By 1882, there were 66 Catholic families in West Bend, and in 1892, Dr. Lynch and G.S. Lang and Matt Regner went to Milwaukee to persuade the bishop to make West Bend a separate parish. West Bend acquired its own parish and priest and Father Stuffel. The congregation continued to grow, and Father Stuffel arranged financing with a young B.C. Ziegler. Holy Angels has seen pastors Joseph Heidner, Edward Sterling, Philip Wagner, Raymond G. Hausman, and presently Jerome Renzel, along with others. The parish of Holy Angels has seen much growth and improvement over the years due to generous benefactors, hardworking priests, and parishioners. At present, the parish has grown to nearly 1,600 families. Pictured here is Father Sterling. And Jerome Renzel. The German Methodists were regularly meeting with a pastor of their own, Reverend Frederick Hines, as early as 1855. In 3 years, they had purchased a lot across from the courthouse square and erected a frame church. A daughter of one of the first settlers, William Reitman, taught the first Sunday school. And because the Episcopalians and the English Methodists still had no regular Sunday school, she taught them too, in English, which was unusual, for all the regular services in their church were in German. While the Episcopalians and the English Methodists had services in English, the German Methodists were the first ones to hold summer camp meetings. In 1892, they acquired the former Baptist Church at 7th Avenue. But by the end of World War II, interest in the German language had waned, and the congregation had dwindled. So in 1950, the Reverend and Mrs. Otto closed the doors of their church and led the 65 members down the street to join the 5th Avenue Methodists. Father Caspar Rühl, born, educated, and ordained in Austria, first arrived in the southern Wisconsin wilderness in 1845. Working as a traveling missionary to the pioneers of the area, the village of Barton was one of many stops in Father Rühl's large territory, and it was here on September 12, 1857, that Father established Immaculate Conception Parish. The first church was built on land occupied by Kepler's restaurant. The first Mass in that church was on December 25, 1857. It was furnished with bells in May 1860. The parish name was chosen in commemoration of the proclamation of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary 3 years earlier in 1854. Father Peter Stoffel was named pastor in October 1888. During his 5-year pastorate, he also served Holy Angels Parish as its missionary priest, and upon being transferred from Immaculate Conception in 1893, he was named as the first full-time in-resident pastor of the Holy Angels Parish. There were now 98 families in the parish. The current church was erected in 1900. The clock from the old church was moved into the new steeple. December 5th, 1900, marked the dedication of the new church. During Father Remen's years as pastor from 1911 until 1937, the present convent was erected in 1926. In April 1967, Father Shaman became his pastorate. The work of remodeling and redecorating the church took place in 1968, changing the interior from Baroque style. Father Schumann remained pastor until 1980. Father John Fortman is the current pastor. St. John's was incorporated on November 16, 1858. Although the Civil War was raging, the growth of the congregation inspired the small group to erect its first church. The first location chosen on the southeast corner of 8th and Walnut was vacated before building operations got underway. A plot of ground on South 6th and Walnut was the final choice in 1863. Pastor George Vergberg served St. John's from 1863 until 1865. Under his ministry, the construction of the church went on, and he compiled the loosely kept records, recopied them in a legible manner so later pastors could follow them. The Civil War church was enlarged in 1897 at a cost of $3,300. The rear half of the church was replaced with a large cross section and a chancellor. In 1943, the congregation voted to construct a new church. First thoughts regarding the ideal site for the new church centered on the south end of the half block in which the school was located. But when difficulties inquired 2 lots across, the relocation of the church became imperative. In 1951, almost 3 acres were bought on the southeast corner of 4th and Decorah. Within 5 years, 2 additional tracts were acquired, bringing the church and school site to 10 acres. The building was completed and dedication was on May 15, 1965. 15 months after the dedication, the church was free of debt. Reverend George A. Mumm was installed on October 30th, 1966. Reverend Robert P. Horner accepted Associate Pastor of St. John's June 19, 1983. The Episcopalian Church began as a mission in 1870. Although visiting priests had brought the sacraments to local Episcopalians before this. The Reitmans were large property owners. They donated land for an Episcopalian church building with the provision that the land never be sold. The wood frame building has been through many changes. In the late 1890s, membership nearly doubled and the church was remodeled. In 1904, the Reverend Johannes Slinger arrived to take charge. He set to work at once to raise funds for a rectory. He then turned his attention to building sidewalks. In 1906, the rectory was built. In 1932, a fire destroyed the sanctuary, and the rest of the church was in danger of being gutted as pictured in this film. The parish held services at the Masonic Temple until repairs were made. By 1974, St. James Mission began a new life as a parish. Since 1980, Reverend Michael P. Darrow has been the rector. He initiated a new church building program, and on November 13, 1983, Bishop Charles T. Caskill officiated at the dedication. The Emmanuel United Church of Christ First Constitution was adopted in 1891, January 1st. The first church was a white frame structure erected for the cost of $1,000 with the aid of an $800 loan from a national building fund. In 1903, an addition to the original structure was built. In 1923, the dedication of the new building was held March 11th. The Clum House next to the church was purchased in 1942 for the parsonage. In 1957, the Lutheran Parochial School, pictured here, was purchased for the Christian education purposes and called the Annex. On Vine Street, a house was bought for Associate Pastor's parsonage, and in 1976, a new parsonage was built on Timberline Drive. In 1980, the 90th anniversary celebration and dedication of the new addition was held on December 7th. The present senior minister, Reverend Marwood Reddick, was installed in 1974. Reverend Douglas Wicker, minister of Christian education and visitation, was installed in 1980. Christian Science was introduced to West Bend about 1907 through the healing of a young girl of a serious illness. An informal group met in private homes until 1913, when they decided to organize as a branch of the Mother Church, the first church of Christian Science in Boston, Massachusetts. Services were then held in the Commercial Hall. In March of 1921, they decided to build a church, and land was purchased from Adolph Detonk at the site of the present church, 225 Fifth Avenue. The first service was held in the church on December 4th of that year. But as no Christian Science church is dedicated until free from indebtedness, the dedication service were not held until October 20th, 1929. On April 1923, Henry Nagel, Herman Kloss, William Cucker, C.I. Nielsen, G. Emmett, and Walter G. Gumm wrote the charter that organized the first English-speaking Lutheran church in the city. They met at first in a room over Paul's department store. First Reverend was Paul Wetzler. C.I. Nelson was the first Sunday school superintendent with classes for 22 pupils. They bought a lot on the southwest corner of 7th and Elm, the site of the old Catholic Church, and moved their services to larger quarters at the Masonic Temple. But fire destroyed it, and they had to return to poles. In 1937, they built a parsonage, and in 1943, they had a membership of 319. Growth was continual and constant, required another lot in 1952, and enlarged church in 1957. Jehovah's Witness activities started in the West Bend area when a group of Bible students met at the home of Grandma Lenz in the 1940s. The Lenz home was located on the site of the present fire department. William Schrank led the group in their weekly Bible discussions. They met at the Rudolph home on 6th Avenue As an attendance increased, they rented rooms in the Marth Building on Main Street for several years. It was decided to purchase some land and build a meeting place. With all the work being done by members of the congregation, a Kingdom Hall was completed on Lenore Drive in 1968. Unfortunately, in December of 1970, a fire gutted the Kingdom Hall. By the end of 1980, the cleanup by the congregation was completed and the rebuilding of the hall was started. Meanwhile, the congregation had met at Barton School and also shared the Kingdom Hall with the Germantown congregation. In 1985, Douglas Gates is the presiding overseer, and the Kingdom Hall at Lenore is once again being overcrowded. The history dates back to 1948, when it was first called the West Bend Assembly of God. Reverend John M. Jones was pastor, and services were held at the Moose Hall on 6th Avenue. At that time, the church was comprised of 2 families. Then in 1950, the small group moved into the little church on the corner of 7th Avenue and Walnut Street. In 1951, the building was purchased and the membership had grown to 9 families. Pastor Jones resigned as pastor in 1958, and in the latter part of that same year, Reverend Thomas B. Hodge became the pastor. By 1959, due to the growth of the West Bend Assembly, it was deemed necessary to acquire the parsonage next to the church building. Over a period of the next 6 years, growth was so great that future expansion became vital to the plans of the church. In 1965, the land on Decorah Road was purchased as a site for building the new church. When Pastor Hodge resigned in 1966, Reverend Corwin Lowell became the pastor, and in April of 1968, groundbreaking ceremonies were held for the building of the Calvary Assembly of God. By December, the building was ready, and the congregation was excited to be moving into their new church building. Dedication services were held in March of 1969. The following year, Pastor Lowell resigned, and later that year, Reverend Lawrence Farnar became the pastor. In 1972, the building was remodeled and enlarged. Just 2 years after the remodeling, the education wing was added to provide additional offices and Sunday school classrooms. In February 1979, Pastor Farnar resigned. Reverend Robert Schooley became the pastor of Calvary Assembly in 1979. The First Baptist Church of West Bend met in Mrs. Irene Hubbard's home on Hillcrest Street, led by Pastor Grant G. Rice in 1955. The First Baptist Church was incorporated June of 1956. The first Sunday service was held at Decorah School. In 1958, Pastor George A. Cable became the pastor and launched the building program. The building committee was Gerald Reed, chairman, Ernest Stevens, vice chairman, Edgar Miskey, Herbert Nelson, Lois Forrester, and William Howard. A groundbreaking ceremony was held May 29, 1960, followed by the Cornerstone Lane service on August 28, 1960. The parsonage was built in 1964 under the leadership of Pastor Lauren Thompson. The congregation felt the need for a Christian school. An addition was built onto the church. The doors opened September 2, 1975. Pastor Richard Gross was the superintendent and Pastor Roger Colmansberger was the principal. 30 young people have gone on to service either as missionaries, pastors, or teachers. In 1982, Pastor Frank Rosapol started and is still the present pastor. The Church of Christ in West Bend had its first service in the home of Emma Kessler on 3rd Avenue on February 16, 1958. In 1961, worship services were conducted in the Moose Hall. The following year, they worshiped in the Masonic Hall until the new church building was built on Parkfield Drive. The first service in the new church building was March 15, 1964. Ray Pennock was the preacher until June of '65. Albert Wanos then came here from Pine City, Minnesota to do the preaching. Other evangelists that have worked with the church include James Grissom, Jerry Merton, and Bobby Hall. Mike Cox will be moving to West Bend in June of '85 when Bobby Hall moves to the Alabama area. The church currently sponsors a 15-minute radio program and is also seen on Lessons from the Bible on WBCC. The work of establishing Our Savior's Lutheran Church began 28 years ago when 12 West Bend couples met to discuss forming it. The Reverend E. Jacobson, pictured there, was sent as the first pastor, and on October 13, 1958, the church was named, and the VFW Hall was rented as a meeting site. The first church service was held in the VFW Hall on February 1, 1959, with an attendance of 82 people. In June of 1959, the church became incorporated under the laws of the state of Wisconsin. In 1960, a loan was arranged in the amount of $60,000 to enable the construction of the first church. The church was completed in 1962, and services were held there. The church was serviced by Pastor Reverend Robert Beckstrand from 1967 to 1972, Reverend Larry Kacha, 1973 to 1984, and Reverend Adolph Quest from 1984 to the present. Added growth of the congregation made an additional necessary. This addition was completed in 1975. The Church of God in West Bend had its early beginning with services being held in homes in and around Kewaskum in the year 1963. Services were eventually held in Homer's Barbershop in Kewaskum and later moved to a schoolhouse at Five Corners near Campbellsport. In 1969, the meetings were moved to West Bend. The first meeting place was in the basement of the old Masonic Temple in downtown West Bend. On March 30, 1969, the church was officiated organized. The church was set in order by the Reverend Billy Bennett, then overseer for the Churches of God for the state of Wisconsin. The Reverend Fred Scott became the new church's first pastor, arriving on June 2, 1969. At about this same time, property at 151 Edgewood Lane was purchased. This property was to serve both as a meeting place until a permanent church building would be constructed and also a parsonage. Services were then moved to this location. The principal instrumental in initiating the church's beginning was a layman by the name of Howard Harris. In 1970, lots were purchased on Paradise Drive from the Hugo Mintz family, on which the present church building was built. Groundbreaking services were held in July of 1972, soon after the arrival of Robert Bob Rogers and his family, who came to assume the pastorate. On November 18, 1973, the building was completed and dedication was held. The West Bend Church of the Nazarene started when the Chisholms began Bible studies and prayer meetings at their home, that was the last picture, at South Main in the summer of 1965. The district superintendent at that time, Reverend R.J. Clack, met with this group and began the official first service on January 2, 1966. More room was needed and the VFW Hall in Barton was rented from July 1966 through March of 1967. Reverend Richard A. Moore, Jr. was appointed as pastor contractor in July of 1967, and construction soon began on the chapel parsonage, which currently houses the West Bend Church of the Nazarene. The new building was completed and the congregation was able to move into the chapel for the organizational service conducted by the district superintendent, R.J. Clack, on April 30, 1967. The mortgage burning service took place May 3, 1981. The present Reverend L. James Walker started in November of 83. Mrs. Ella Stevens was the only charter member in the congregation. The Emmaus Bible Church began as a Bible study when 4 couples felt the need for a new work with a strong Bible ministry in the West Bend area. The church was incorporated in January of 1974. The first meeting place was in the home of Pastor Tom Schmidt. It was located on the grounds of Camp Awana in Fredonia. It grew quickly and more space was needed. The group purchased the building on 6th and Walnut. Soon, these facilities were too small. During the transition to their present location, the church met at the West Bend High School auditorium. At that time, the church considered a new facility. The former Masonic Temple building came up for sale at a fraction of what a new building would have cost. The building was purchased and is now the Emmaus Bible Church at 22 North 6th Avenue, West Bend. Reverend Tom Schmidt served as the first pastor for 5 years. Pastor Reverend James L. Taylor came to West Bend in 1979 from the community church in Wilmot, South Dakota, along with his wife Carol and their 3 children, Brad, Judy, and Susan. The Hope Community Church began in 1975 in one of its founders' homes. Then they moved to Fair Park Elementary School under several intern pastors. Once again, the need for new facilities was needed, and Hope Church moved to Masonic Lodge facilities in 1981. Hope Community Church has produced several family musicals, one in 83 and one in 85. Both productions involved young people from its church. Hope Church is affiliated with the Reformed Church of America. It is the oldest Protestant denomination. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, founder of the magazine Guidepost, and Dr. Robert Schuler of Garden Grove Community Church are two well-known pastors belonging to this denomination. Leland Coogan is present pastor at Hope Community Church.